Yeah, one of the things that it's because just like you were saying when you were unsure if anybody cares, I was doing and I was engaging for a client and I was like, does engagement really matter? Nobody seems to be, I'm not going to engage anymore. And I engaged on a comment for a client and they were like, oh, that's exactly what I needed. And they bought. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, engagement works. Okay, I'm going to keep doing this. And it's not that everybody buys. And it's not that, it always works out like that. But it confirmed to me that consistently showing up and consistently putting yourself out there returns more results ever than one-offing it and waiting till the right time.
Hello and welcome to the Disrupt the Everyday podcast. We're here to help you navigate life while disrupting the status quo. Our discussions cover a number of topics relevant to everyday life. We discuss everything from relationships to entrepreneurship. We also engage in some difficult but important conversations. And now, here are your hosts, Brian and Tanya Hamilton.
Welcome to the Disrupt the Everyday podcast. Today we're joined by Tamay Shannon. Tamay, thanks for joining us today.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Oh, for sure. And we're going to start off the way we start off every show, and that's by learning a little bit about the person we're having the conversation with. So we'll start by asking, who is Tamay Shannon?
Oh my gosh, that is such a big question and feels very intimidating. But really, I guess the heart of it is who I am as somebody who gets super geeked and excited about other people's passions. My mother suggested that I start a business out of school because I was one of the lucky few who got out of school in 2008 when the world was just full of abundance, right? And I was trying to find jobs and none of that was happening. They were like, we could give you an internship. I'm like, no, internships don't pay bills. And so so my mom was like, well, why don't you start a business? You're already helping people for fun on the side. And I was like, that's a bad idea, Mom. That's a horrible idea. Because I thought that I needed to have an MBA. I thought that I needed to be in corporate. I thought I needed to have this and this and this and this and this before I could be a business owner. But the idea, it stuck with me for 6 months and it just noodled around in my head. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it a go. It's just me and a dog. And if I'm just eating ramen, it'll be fine. It'll be okay. So that is why I started my business 10 years ago. And it really is, I really do get to work with people and their passions. Nobody wakes up and says, I want to start a business because I want to make tons of money. Like that is a wonderful side benefit. And I want small businesses to prosper, but nobody starts with that in mind. They're not like, I'm gonna be a millionaire. It's like, I mean, yeah, you're going to make money, but it might take a little time before you get to be a millionaire status. But just the passion that somebody wakes up and says, I need to see this product in the world, or I need to see this service in the world, or these people aren't being served, or we could do this better. And then they start a business and they figure it out, because being in a business is a lot about figuring it out day in and day out. You're like, I think this is a good decision. I will make this decision. And then you get more information. You're like, okay, I could have made a better decision and next time I will, but it's always that. So I just love that part. And that's just a part of me. I'm insatiably curious and just working with people who are excited about something. I get excited about it. Like I've worked with people who I'm like, on its own, it's a really boring product. But when they talk about it, I'm like, oh, okay, tell me more. So, yes.
Cool. And obviously the social media is, that's been your baby, that's been your business. Now, is social media, and I guess thinking in terms of the way that, your business operates, is social media only for small business owners, or say for somebody who's wanting to advance in their career? Can they leverage social media to help them do that?
Oh my gosh, totally. So, yes, social media is a wealth of information. It is a wealth of data. And so if you, for example, are like, I want to advance my career, I want to make those moves, you can go to LinkedIn and like research your boss or research your industry and see what people who are at your level, what are they doing and how are they moving up? And then also like, network yourself into a job. That's what LinkedIn is all about. If you're like, I really want to work at this big company, it's like, right, 6 degrees of separation. Let's figure it out. Who are you connected to? Who can they make an introduction to and go from there? But LinkedIn is just, it's raw data that you can take and make informed decisions about the moves that you want to make in your life.
And I know like Brian's been on LinkedIn, geez, like I don't even know how long, since it almost feels like the beginning.
Well, it was like, I think 2014 when I got on there.
Yeah. So I remember him talking about, LinkedIn, that's the new thing, right? And I only just really got on a little while ago, but it is interesting to see how those connections are made. So my question is, when somebody, everybody has their personal social media, right? Their personal Facebook page and their Instagram and stuff. Now, when they, whether it's starting a business or just trying to get out there, and there's that shift. So like now making a new account for your business or whatever it is, how do you recommend, or I guess, what are the steps that you recommend people take when opening up that separate account?
So it can go so many different ways, right? So let's say, just for example, on LinkedIn, the trajectory of LinkedIn and how people presented themselves professionally has shifted because the workforce has shifted. So when LinkedIn was first out there, it was legit just a pretty visual resume. It was like people just copy and pasted the resume and that was it. It was like, whoo, I'm on LinkedIn now. That's all you had to do. And now on LinkedIn, there, especially with the younger workforce coming in, the demand for authenticity and the demand for showing up as you and not the corporate version of you is grown. And people say, well, once you get it, once you graduate from college, you can't do these things and that's not appropriate. And that's a line, because the people who are moving into the C-suite are millennials. And so we have how we view social media, and how we view it is certainly different than the generation before us. So I think that if you are starting anew, one of the things that you've really got to look at is, how do you be authentic to you? And you've got to look at is, like, I'm definitely not saying share everything, because ain't nobody trying to hear that. No. But you also want to make sure that you don't work yourself into a job that you don't want, so that you're not working yourself into an environment that, even though it's prestigious, that it might have all the wonderful letters and names and the 100-year history, but that when you're in this position, you die inside. That's not for you. So if you find yourself having to dramatically change who you are on social to get the job, I would just inquire as to maybe this place that you're looking for a job is not the right fit for you, because we spend too much time at work to have to go from one persona to another persona. Like, it's just too much time to be doing that. So I would say that about LinkedIn. But then if you're starting anew on, Instagram or Twitter or Facebook or anything like that, it's the same thing. It goes back to authenticity. I think just with 2020, we sick and tired of lies, and people see that. Like, people can see that. Like, people are like, that don't sound right. And because we have the internet, we have receipts. So people are like, let me scroll back a couple of months and see what you said about this. And you're like, oh, what I meant, let me, and it's like, so authenticity, being true to you at the end of the day, one, it serves to make sure that the audience that you want to attract, you attract. Whatever you believe in, if you're authentic, the audience that you want to attract, you will attract, and they will be there for you, versus you having to play some role. But it also just makes it easier for you to naturally navigate the ways you want to take your career or your business. Because when you say, hey, I am pivoting to X, if you've always been authentic, nobody's going to be surprised. Like, oh, I could totally see you doing that. That's awesome. But if you haven't been authentic, and if you've been putting on a face, and then you say, I'm going to pivot to Y, they're like, that just seems weird. I don't understand. So just being authentic makes it easier for all the moves and changes that you want to do in your business or your career.
I totally agree with that.
You can. I know. So, and it's funny because I fall prey to it too. There are absolutely times where I'm scrolling through and I'm like, I want my business to look like that. Like, I totally go into my head about Right. Like how I'm not doing enough or I'm not doing it right or blah, 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 blah. And it's like, stay in your lane.
Yeah.
Like what I am living and how I am living, if it's working for me, the comparison only gets me upset and frustrated.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. So everybody says, how do you stop the scroll when, you're on social media? Like, even I feel like I've been on social media more since we started the podcast, because now it's not just for my personal accounts, right? So sometimes it gets a little just like daunting and overwhelming. It's the same thing. You're like, somebody's trying to sell something, right? So as a viewer, I guess you could say, being, when you're online, everybody wants to know, how do you stop the scroll? What's something you can post or have for people to view that will stop them and look at?
So it's a mix of things. One, you've got to look at what these platforms prioritize. So right now, these platforms are prioritizing short form video. So for Instagram, that's Reels, that's TikTok, YouTube has your short form. Everybody's got their short form video, and that's what they're prioritizing. So that's the type of content that they'll give a boost to. So anytime, 10 years in advance, 11 years in advance, whatever, always look at what is important to the platforms, because their priority is to get people to stay on their platform. And so they're going to boost content or really prioritize content that accomplishes that goal. So currently right now, it's short form content. So creating something like that, absolutely. But then dovetailing on that, or in addition to that, there's creating content that people actually want to read or want to see. I don't know. And you might be like, but I posted something yesterday and nobody saw it. And it's like, that's probably true. That's absolutely probably true. And it's being consistent, right? Like if I know that the one time I do see your post, I was like, oh, that was funny. I like that. That was great. And then I come back and I happen to see it a couple of days later. And again, I'm like, wow, I'm really enjoying this. And if that keeps happening, you become a place that I actually look forward to and seek out versus just running into randomly on their internet. So it's being consistent. At the end of the day, if you're a small business and you're not working with like huge corporate entities, I would really prize doing literally okay content consistently versus that excellent genius piece every month or so. Because if you're only producing that excellent genius piece every month or so, what's going to happen is that person who's consistent is I'm going to remember them. I'm going to be like, oh no, I see them every day. Let me go ahead and call them for this service, or let me go ahead and call them for this product. So yeah, that consistency is super key.
Yeah, I see that. That makes sense.
Now, when we're thinking in terms of a small business owner, generally small business owners, professionals who are really, really going hard to improve their status and enhance their career, generally don't have a ton of time. So if you have a limited amount of time to be on social media, where would you recommend someone get started?
I would say, so Answer the Public is a really great resource, answerthepublic.com. It's a free resource. And also answersocrates.com is another free resource. And then even like the annual report that Google puts out, where it's like, what has been most Googled? What has been most searched? And why these are important, why these help save time, is you can see whether it's your industry, whether it's your business field, whatever it is, you can see what people are asking about. You can see what people are inquiring about. What do people want to know about? And then you can create content based on that. So instead of you being like, I don't know what to write, I'll write about whatever popped into my head today, you can look at it and say, oh, people want to know what this acronym means. Okay, well, I could do that. That's easy. Let's do the acronym. So I think it's doing that. And then also for business or career purposes, look at what your peers are saying and looking at what one level above you is saying. So you want to see what your peer group is talking about, and then you want to see what the people above you, what they care about. Because sometimes it could be different things. And so you can be the one to say, oh, everybody's talking about this, but really what my superiors or what my bosses care about is this. Let me go ahead and say something about that. Let me go and give my opinion about that.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the Facebook has been really interesting. I've noticed, like, even just with the groups and pages, like for, I'm just thinking even for our podcast, but I see like a lot of other groups and pages that I'm on, somebody will be like, oh, did you see the post that I made? I'm like, no. And I'll go back and I'm like, oh, it was there, but it doesn't fall through in that, I guess, algorithm, right? On your pages.
Right.
So have you noticed that? And what's up with that for the Facebook pages and groups?
So right now, what Facebook has noticed is that groups is what keep people on the platform.
Okay.
Because groups tend to be more targeted. And so people tend to be more involved. They're like, if like I'm part of a bougie Black girls who love Aldi group, and because I love Aldi, and so I'm like, oh, it's great. And I interact with the group. I'm scrolling through. I'm like, oh, what do they think about this? And I'm oh, okay, well, I'm not gonna get that. They said it was nasty. So I interact with that group heavily, more than I ever would like the Aldi Facebook page or blah, blah, blah. So groups keep people on Facebook because they're around our interests. They're around the things we care about. And so Facebook, they want to prioritize that. They want to make sure that it gets out there, that you see those group posts versus a page where it's just a business. And they're like, I mean, how interesting are you? And so, and especially because it's a business, I always tell people this: Facebook isn't here for businesses. Right. They're not here for us. They don't care about us. They're not here for us. They're here for users. And how do they make users stay on the platform longest? So they'll do whatever they need to do. And if that happens to help a business person, fine, okay, whatever. But they're not here to make our lives easy. So that's the biggest difference between a page and a group, is that group really has people engaged, and pages are just disseminating information. And typically they don't have the level of comments, they don't have the level of engagement that a group does.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like every business could still have a group, right? Like, geez, I'm thinking like, even if it's a contracting company or something, right? Just to be able to post and update tips and tricks, right?
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Yes, absolutely. Every business can have a group. And one of the things that, but here's a interruption. No matter what platform you have, and no matter where you're on, what you're on, you've always got to make sure that you have a way to reach out to these people that's not on the platform. Because, for example, earlier this year, Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp went down for 6 hours. And if you were like, I'm doing a launch or I'm doing a sale, and people can't get to you for 6 to 8 hours, that is a lot of sales that you potentially missed out on. So at the end of the day, you still have to have a way to reach out to these people individually, whether it's through email or a phone number, but some way to reach out to them.
Awesome. Now, the one thing too that was always daunting when I first got on social media is I hear people just talking about creating content, and my initial thoughts were like, I don't know how to create content. I don't even know really what content is. And when I really dug deeper, it's not what I thought it was. So for those of us who are just getting started, how would you define what content is?
Content is anything your audience cares about. And so content can be a video. If you are a choreographer, people want to see video. If you are a baker, they might want to read your recipes. So content is any piece of a medium, video, pictures, words that you put out there that your audience is looking for. It could be memes. It's just a wide variety, but really there isn't an easy way to create content, and there is an easy way to create content. So most of the time when people get stuck with content, it's because they want to make it too complicated. They're like, well, I talked about this topic last week. I can't talk about it again. And from your perspective, you probably are tired of it. But from people who don't know your field and who don't know your expertise, for them, it's still new. Like I work with a real estate agent, and I'm like, I'm gonna need you to explain what these loans mean. What are these acronyms? I know you told me last week. I need you to say it again because I'm still a little bit confused. And for her, it's obvious, but I'm like, I don't, wait, huh? What's it? Wait, what? Okay, sure. I believe you. And it's just like that. So there's this level of expertise that you gather in your first year of business that for you is like obvious. It's like, doesn't everybody know that? And it's like, no, because if they did, they would be the expert and they would be selling your services, but they're not, because that's not where their expertise lies. So that's why I say people are making it too hard. You can repeat yourself over and over again, because not only are you learning that this is your expertise, but also you've got to remember that people have full and big lives. So just because you talked about a topic last week doesn't mean they saw it last week. Doesn't mean they even knew it existed last week. So that's why I say keep repeating yourself in different ways, because if you've ever been networking in groups and you finally do a one-on-one with someone and they're like, oh gosh, so that's what you do. And you're like, we've been in the same group for a year. Why is this a surprise to you? But that happens, right? It happens to me all the time. It's like, so that's what, and it's like, yep, I've been saying the same spiel for 30 seconds for the whole year, but cool. So it's the same thing on the internet. We are inundated and we're involved in our lives. And so you repeating it over and over again is actually a service so that we can get a little bit enough of it to be like, I think I need to book a call with them. I think that's my next move.
Cool. Now, the thing, now that we've kind of defined what content is, the thing that that we want to talk about was creating a content calendar, building that out, exactly what that is. Now, I'll kind of share my content story. So when I first got on LinkedIn, I had posted there's a couple of days where there's some quotes that just stuck out to me. So I just shared these quotes on LinkedIn. I didn't think anything of it. I think I did this for 3 days in a row and then I just stopped. And then I got messages from a couple of people saying, where's the quote for today? Right. So I was like, oh, I guess this is a thing. So I just continued doing it. And every time I thought of quitting doing this. And again, I've been doing this, I think, for like probably 7 years now, every single day. But there's been a couple of times where I'm like, okay, I don't even think anybody's reading these. I'm just going to stop doing it. And then I'll get a message from someone saying, I really needed to see that today. Thank you. Keep posting this stuff. So I'm like, okay, I guess I'm just doing this now. Right. And this is a thing now. And I think what you bring to the table is what you're going to share is probably going to be helpful for me because, 7 years in, it's getting difficult to find things to keep sharing with people.
So it's, what's funny is 7 years in, 365 days and the attention spans that humans have, you can start all over.
Yeah.
Like you literally could be like, scroll. What's the first one I did? Okay, we're going to do that one again. We can do it. It's fine. But no, I think in creating your content calendar, I think one of the things that people always miss, why they think that social media doesn't work or why they feel frustrated is they haven't tied it to a goal. Like, what is the purpose of this? And what do I want to achieve? And so if you want to achieve a bigger audience or you want to have more newsletter signups, so you want to do this, or this, creating the content around that produces results such that you can then have the breadth and width to hire out pieces or subcontract out pieces or be like, hey, can you find me 100 quotes from these type of people and have somebody go do that. And so you don't have to be doing it, but it always comes back to what is the goal? What is the purpose? So when you're starting your content, what is the goal? What is the purpose? What I want to have happen? That's always your first question. And then once you have that answer, then you can look at, all right. And for smaller businesses and solopreneurs, I always look at, well, what are you comfortable with creating? Some people are like, I love video. I'm like, great, let's do some videos. And some people are like, I hate video with a fiery passion. I'm like, well, let's do words. Fine, do words. So it really goes, so what are you, because I don't want you to have to fight yourself to create content, because once you start fighting yourself, that adds an extra 2 hours to the process and it makes it tiring because you're like, you have to think about it really hard and then you finally sit down and do it. And then you finally it makes it all this miserable role. So once you know what type of content you're comfortable and that you're excited to create, then you look at, okay, what will my call to action be? And again, this goes back to the goal you want to have happen. So is my call action going to be sign up for this? book a call, do this, do that, tell me your opinion. That's a call to action. What, share your comments below. But you always have to end with telling people to do something, whatever that something is, whether it's asking for the sell, whether it's liking it, but you've got, give people the next thing to do. Give people the next thing to do.
That makes sense. And it's interesting, right? Because you start going through these things. And even when I post sometimes, I mean, I'm no social media expert by any stretch, but I always try to have something like that. And, you sometimes forget, but I have noticed when you do, there's like a little click there. Maybe, hey, just maybe a couple more likes or a couple more views. But yeah, when the post or whatever it is done the way you're saying, like correctly like that, there is more engagement. So it makes sense. I've seen it.
It's, and it's funny. It's the part of being human that we forget about. But it's just like, you have kids. And so you tell them, hey, did you do X? And they might say no. And you might be expecting them to fill in why they didn't do X. But since you didn't ask them why they didn't do X, they just answered the question. They just like, I did not do it. And you're like, why didn't you do it? And so it's the same thing with people. Hey, I've got a new, I've seen people be like, I'm really excited. I've launched a new program, and then they'll end it. And it's like, tell them to click, tell them to buy it, tell them to do something. But if you just say, I'm really excited, people are like, I'm excited with you. Let's be excited together. And it's like, I wanted you to buy it though. So you've got to tell people the action you want them to take.
And I think sometimes people around our age thinking, okay, well, we don't need social media at a social media consultant. We're like experts. We've been on social media for the last 10 years, right? And sometimes you just think it's like the older people who are still in the phone book, who are the ones that need that social media consultant or coach, what have you, right? But the reality is we don't research this. Everybody else who isn't in this field, right? This is not our job. We didn't go to school for this. We haven't done all the research and the time. And I guess, obviously there's benefits to having somebody like you, just like there's benefits to, having a coach at the gym or a trainer, right?
Exactly.
So what are some of those benefits that you could just, quick name off for people?
Yeah, I think one of the benefits is clarity. Not sitting down in front of your computer being like, okay, what do I post today? And knowing when you know what you post is going to produce a certain result, then you can start creating that predictability in your business that people want. Like, okay, I know that if I get 100 people to this landing page, that I'm going to have a 25% conversion, which means my income this month will be X. And I know when I post these types of posts, people click through. So I just got to post 3 of these to get 100 of this, to get 25% conversion, to have my income be X. That is the clarity that if you have somebody supporting you with the strategy and the data, that's the clarity that you can produce. And then that way, the highs and lows and the unpredictability you can smooth out. So that's one thing. And then another thing is, one of the things that I noticed that people are super frustrated about is that social media will change and then they'll think they're crazy. And so you'll have somebody there being like, no, that's not you. That's Facebook. It's okay. But yeah, they'll be like, I thought I could do this, or I used to be able to do this, or why is it this way? And it's like, no, don't worry. Facebook is doing something. They're rolling out a small test to this group of people. That's why yours looks different, or blah, 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 blah. So it's nice to know that you're like, I've seen so many people are like, I'm clicking around and I don't know where to go. And it's like, oh, no, they changed it. The layout is different now. It's fine. Don't worry. So that's another one. But really, it's the clarity. It's being able to know what your actions are going to produce in your business on social media.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so time-wise, is there a magic number of how much time we should be spending on social media, especially for that business page?
So there isn't a magic number, but what I do say is spend enough time that you engage and comment on all posts. So somebody took the time to say, that's awesome, I love it, whatever they say, even if it's a little comment like that, at least like it or leave a heart. Because when you do that, people get that feedback that, oh, somebody was listening to me. they're more likely to engage the next time. And so really engagement on social media is the thing that really has it work for your business. So like, heart, comment, respond, whatever you need to do, but make sure you do that consistently all the time.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, it's social media. There's no magic bullet. There really isn't. There's no magic. If you just do this and then the world will be your oyster. There's none of that. It really is where it's consistency and engagement, especially the more crowded it gets, then the people who are your fans or the people who are in your camp, growing and nurturing that relationship will lead to others because they'll share your content or they'll share, oh, you know what? I was just talking to my girlfriend. You need to go talk to her. Or I just saw this post. This is appropriate for you. Go see it. So nurturing that connection it's really, slow and steady wins now race. And now if you are like, I don't want to go slow, cool, throw money at it. So if you want to run ads, that is absolutely something you can do. But if you're going to run ads, you need to be very clear about the results you want to have, the audience you want to reach out to, and the way in which you're going to reach out to them is going to be the way that they want to be reached out to. So for example, if you're like, oh, you know what's new and hot now? That TikTok, but you're dealing with life insurance for retirees, the TikTok might not be the place for you to do ads. So it's just making sure that where you're at and where your ads are actually in line with your audience and not just because it's a hot new thing everybody's talking about.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, that community, right? Like I keep hearing that word. People are, working on building that community on their social media pages and platforms, right? Because it's true. Everybody wants to feel connected. Everybody wants to feel heard. Don't we all? Right. So I do keep hearing that. You think that's going to continue on into 2022?
I do. And I think more so, I mean, Facebook just decided to not just decided like it wasn't on a whim, but they changed their name, right? And the reason why they changed their name is because they really wanted to focus on the communities that they wanted to create in this Web3 space, in this world that is being built as we speak. And communities is a thing that people care about, right? Like it's the reason why people participate. It's the reason why people share their opinion is because they're a part of a community and they want to offer their voice to it. And so when you have people actively engaged like that, it's when things change. It's why Georgia turned blue. It's all of those things. So that's why, community is going to continue to be important. It's because that is the way that as humans, we work and we connect. That's just a fundamental human thing. Is you're a human, you like community. That's a part of it. And so social media is just now beginning to actually reflect that. That's the reason why people like Reddit so much is because you can find that community that likes to, play the banjo. You can find that community that likes to do this. And there are people who are just as geeked about it as you are.
Awesome. Now, one thing just based on, again, your work experience, are there any success stories that kind of come to front of mind for you? Some things that have worked well with some of your clients that you could share, or just moments that you're proud of?
Yeah, one of the things that it's because just like you were saying when you were unsure if anybody cares, I was doing and I was engaging for a client and I was like, does engagement really matter? Nobody seems to be, I'm not going to engage anymore. And I engaged on a comment for a client and they were like, oh, that's exactly what I needed. And they bought. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay, engagement works. Okay, I'm going to keep doing this. And it's not that everybody buys. And it's not that, it always works out like that. But it confirmed to me that consistently showing up and consistently putting yourself out there returns more results ever than one-offing it and waiting till the right time, because there's never a good time. But yeah, I think it just solidified to me that engagement is the thing. And then one time I was working with an app, and again, it comes back down to engagement. And this app is one that I really enjoyed. And one of the things that I was sure about is that how I communicated was super important, because it was an app that particularly deals with therapy for marginalized people. That was their target. And so there were times where I had to really look at, how do we say this isn't for you in a very nice, respectful way? And so, but again, it comes back to engagement, because the way I said it enabled me to have people be like, oh, okay, cool, and not be burn everything down, I hate this all. So it really, engagement really allows you to have conversations and really make your business, make your brands come alive in a way that a static post can't.
Right now, I've kind of summarized what we've discussed today with I like doing this, so don't be offended if these are terrible, but feel free to steal them if you think they're good. But kind of broke it down to 3 C's: content, consistency, and community. It kind of sums up a lot of what we discussed today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cosign, perfect. Yeah.
Awesome. No, I guess the last thing. Well, actually, I won't commit to this being the last question, but last thing for now. So again, we kind of touched on the social media calendar, which again, that was kind of what we envisioned we were going to discuss, but we've kind of went in a few different directions here. But again, if I'm actually going to physically create that social media calendar, what are kind of the steps for that process? What do you recommend for someone who's just kind of doing this on their own?
So the easiest way to do it is create themes for your days. And these are basically internal themes. They're not themes you have to put out in the world, but it helps you to, when you're creating content, you have a bucket to automatically slot it into. So it just takes some of the questioning away. So create themes for your days. And that could be education, it could be promo, it could be whatever, but create themes for your days. And then go ahead and create a standard template or looks. So for example, let's say you are a lover of filters. Great. What is the 1 or 2 filters, maybe 2, that your business will use? And so people, again, can begin to recognize the look. So if you want to do one day, just do a straight picture, you always add the filter it, and people are like, oh, that's that business. So there's that. And if you're going to create templates for your business in addition to, so let's say you want to do quotes, or you want to share tips or information or blah, 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 then these templates are, again, things that you can easily all you have to do is change the words and it's ready to go. So you change the word, save it, boom, we're gone. And then also make sure that, again, the thing I mentioned earlier, because sometimes we're like, I don't know what to say. What do people care about? What do they want to know? Answer the Public is beautiful, because it literally will tell you, it'll give you the questions that people are typing in to the search engine. So if you're like, I don't know, what do people want to know about my field, or what do people want to know about health or nutrition or whatever your field is, then when you type that word nutrition, you can see the ways in which people are interacting with that word on Google. And you'll be like, oh, I know that answer. Okay, let me make a post about that answer. So again, that'll make it easier for you to create content, because you don't have to think of it yourself. And one of the things, if you can, batch create your content. Spend time on Sunday or Saturday or Wednesday, whatever the day is for you, and just create a week of content and go ahead. And I would say in the beginning, you'll probably spend some time on it. But once you have your strategy, you have your themes, you have your call to action, and you have all the information already created, you can bang out a whole week in probably 2.5 hours, including creating the images that go with it with the caption. So once you do that and you schedule it, all you have to do throughout the week is just engagement.
Yeah, that makes sense. I see that all the time. Batch and all that kind of stuff. I mean, people talk about, batch cooking over the weekend, right? And it's funny because obviously reels are all the craze right now, and I have fun doing them, but my rule is I got to do the ones that are easy, because I don't have an hour to record and redo over and over again, right? So
But no, that's like, that is super smart because yeah, some people want to be like, I want to do all the transitions and blah, 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 blah. And you're like, I ain't got time for that. I'm not doing it. And so that's perfect. Like knowing what your limits are, knowing what your true capacity is, not your aspirational capacity, but your true capacity and sticking to it and being okay with it. I love it.
That's me. I get 10, 15 minutes. That's all I got.
Now, the other thing I was kind of curious too, and you touched on this a little bit, like planning a week in advance. How far in advance ideally should you be looking ahead when you're planning your content?
So I would say in the perfect world, a month out would be phenomenal because it would give you the space to be creative and take advantage of opportunities. Right. But that's probably not going to happen. So let's do realistically 2 weeks. But what you should keep an eye on, even if you haven't created the content, is upcoming promotional periods. So for example, in October, September, you should have been like, okay, Black Friday is coming up. I know it's happening this year. It always happens. What do I want to do, if anything? And that's just the same thing with any big holidays, whether it's Valentine's Day or Labor Day or any of these big holidays. If it's an aligned opportunity for you to sell, keep an eye on it for, I would say, 3 months out, because when you know what you want to do, you can start pulling together things that you want to, if you want to collaborate. So let's say you're like, oh, you know what? I really want to do a Christmas bundle. Well, you'll need some time to go to the different businesses saying, hey, let's get together and do this bundle, create a landing page, create the sales price. It'll take time. So just know that for whatever promotional big launches, opportunities that you have coming up, you're going to need a little bit more time out to plan those.
Yeah.
The other thing you mentioned too that I'd like to get your opinion on is is scheduling the content once you have it up. So I've done this before where I've used like, I won't say the name of the app, but I've used like a scheduling app to help get the content out there. And one of them in particular, I had a bad experience. Is the one time where I actually didn't post anything on a day because for whatever reason, my LinkedIn wasn't synchronized and I didn't know. I was like, I was actually looking, I noticed that there was a day where nothing got posted. And I was like, let me just check this out. And I see it's still showing pending and saying that I need an update. I was like, okay, this isn't helpful. This kind of defeats the purpose. So I just went back to just posting every single day with the content. But what are your recommendations on, using some of these scheduling platforms?
I think for a lot of people, they're actually a must. I think that a lot of people don't have the space to be like, oh, I want to post this at 2, and then remember at 2 that they wanted to post something because something happened. So I think scheduling tools are absolutely useful because timing and figuring it out. For example, if it's like, oh, I want to post something at 6 o'clock in the morning. Do you really want to get up at 6 to post something? Or did you rather have somebody else manage that for you? So there's things like that, whether it's super early or super late, or if you're on the East Coast, you're trying to get West Coast, and all of that consideration. So I definitely think they're super useful. And Facebook has, its own native scheduling tool, the Creative Studio that they've recently, it's still buggy. There are still times I'm like, okay, that didn't work. but I definitely think use them. Absolutely use them. If it makes your life easier, use them.
There you go. Well, Tamay, this has been a great conversation. And I mean, hey, who doesn't need to know and want to learn more about social media? Like, we're all on it. Totally. So this has been awesome, really productive. And I've learned quite a few things. So can you let us know, are you working on something right now? Where can we find you? All that good stuff.
Yeah, so I am working on, no, I actually just finished. I'm not working on, I just finished this Propel Your Growth ebook that I created. And it's a workbook action guide. And so it's free to download. And if you find me on Instagram at W2S Marketing, there'll be a link in my bio that'll take you directly to it. But it answers a lot of these questions where, how do I create a strategy? What is my posting schedule? What is my theme? What is this? It takes you through that for the year, because that is the one thing that I really saw was missing for business owners is this like, okay, so what do I do now? And why isn't social media bringing me money? It's like, okay, cool. Here you go.
Here's the answer.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. And nobody's going to hear any of this when they're listening, but we had a ton of technical issues at the beginning. So thanks for sticking it out and getting this done.
Oh, totally.
Yes, thanks so much, Tamay.
Life happens. Totally cool. It was weird. It was Zoom. It was fine.
We made it.
Yes, exactly.
Thanks for listening to the Disrupt the Everyday podcast. For more ways to listen, connect with us on social media. To be a guest or to partner with us, check out our link tree at Disrupt the Everyday. Join us next time for more ways to disrupt the everyday.
Tuesday.